I'm gonna show you the difference between flexibility versus mobility, and we're gonna start right now. Oh, my shoulders are tight. So what is range of motion? It's moving through a prescribed pattern without having any issues. I believe it's really important to be able to stop and start at different degrees without having any issues. What factor does flexibility and mobility play in overall health and performance? So for sports performance, greater mobility can help an athlete move through that greater range of motion, and that's imperative with a whole bunch of different sports. Sports like wrestling, football, and even field hockey. Let's take weightlifting for example. If we have weightlifter A versus weightlifter B, they both can pull a snatch to the exact same height with the exact same weight. But weightlifter B has better mobility than weightlifter A, so they can catch in a deeper position. This means that over time, weightlifter B, one, will probably have less injuries, and two, that weightlifter will also be able to snatch a little bit more because they can catch in a deeper position. Think about wrestling. If you have someone who has low hips when they're going to hit a switch in folk style wrestling, if they can lower their hips really deeply, that's gonna help them get better leverage over their opponent. Also with football, if linemen have better hip positions, think about Joe Thomas, one of the best offensive linemen of all time. He has great hip mobility, and that helped him have better leverage and better power position when he's absorbing someone coming off the edge. This takes us right into shoulder mobility. Take, for example, myself. If I'm swimming, I might struggle to get a long stroke. And even as I do that, I might have to compensate by rotating a little bit more. But if someone who's an elite swimmer, think about Michael Phelps, they can have a longer stroke without compensating their technique, which leads to greater stroke output and better positioning with their posture in the pool. This is very similar to hip mobility and dynamic trunk control. So with health and longevity, as you age, you want to have longer muscles. If you have longer muscles, you're a little bit more mobile and you can handle various things that might happen to you as you're getting older. Think about older people, as they're walking, they get a little bit more rigid, they lose that suppleness. But if they're training properly and they're going through full range of motion and they're doing different things like yoga, ideally as they get 70, 75, 80 years old, if they go outside and they might slip on ice, their body has been trained in that different position and they don't actually break their hip when they fall on the floor. Typically, people with more muscle spend more time being active. That also leads to a longer, healthier, happier life. Using this slipping on ice example, when a muscle is lengthened rapidly or stretched rapidly, that can lead to a catastrophic injury if the individual isn't training with that high degree of force, with that high intensity in that range of motion. That's why we even have individuals who are over the age of 60 still doing weightlifting movements directly behind the camera, because it's important so that as they age, they stay healthy and they can handle those different things without having a bad injury. In comes flexibility and mobility. In simplest terms, flexibility is holding a position or a movement pattern passively. For instance, I'm sitting here cross-legged and I'm not actively trying to hold this position. I'm able to get here, hold this nice and easy from a passive degree. Flexibility can also entail how far a joint can move by actually being forced through that position or gently forced. So let's take this example. This is one of my favorite examples to display this. If I have my thumb and I move my thumb backwards, this is the degree, the degree of flexibility that my thumb, the joint in my thumb actually has, okay? Now, the mobility that my joint in that thumb would have is based off of how I can move my thumb, okay? So this is my mobility, and I'm actually rotating my wrist, so I shouldn't be doing that. So this is my mobility, this is my flexibility. So mobility is being able to move actively through that full range of motion and having different joints that can be stable there. So right now, my hips are being mobile, my ankles are being mobile, my lower back's being mobile, and I'm able to hold a decent position with my thoracic spine. And that's all because we love to use the technique stick available at garagestrength.com, which is great for your overall mobility. So mobility takes into account the component of motor control. Think about flexibility as underneath the umbrella of mobility. And if we can train flexibility properly with some type of load, like what our weightlifters are doing behind the cameraman, now that load can then lead to greater flexibility and tremendous improvement in mobility because they're training with that motor control component. If you notice how well I could move through all those different ranges of motion, we've got to thank today's video sponsor, Brutal Buddha, and their micro mesh package protector. These are the most comfortable shorts that I've worn while training. I can even wear these out and have a little bit of style, especially because of that package protector. So make sure if you want to train that flexibility and enhance your mobility, which in turn will lead to greater sports performance, click on the link down below in the description and pick up your Brutal Buddha shorts today. So how do either of these apply to yoga, gymnastics, or even weightlifting? So yogis might be really flexible. They're gonna have good strength endurance. They can hold positions for long periods of time, but sometimes they might lack motor control in those mobile positions with high intensity. So if you put a lot of weight on them, they might struggle to have the strength to handle those positions and that load. Gymnasts and weightlifters both train intensely at high speeds in longer ranges of motion. When they train at those high speeds, they can also typically handle high intensity, which means more load, more force, right? This is something similar to bodybuilders. Bodybuilders follow the mantra of lengthening is strengthening. The more mobile a bodybuilder is and the more weight that they can handle, the bigger their muscle bellies are gonna get, so they look good on the stage. Ooh, this is tight. I'm so tight from sitting on the plane. Oh my gosh. So athletes can improve their overall flexibility by doing different types of static stretching, by doing different types of movements through that full range of motion. If they have a lagging area, they can target that specific muscle group or muscle by doing flexible work, okay, by doing passive work, like what I'm doing right now. But then as you get stronger and as you get a little bit more flexible, you can start to train in those deeper ranges of motion, which in turn, as an athlete, will help you produce more force in more ranges of motion, which will lead to better performance in your specific area. So make sure that you use all the tips that we provide in our videos to help you increase your force production by liking, subscribing, and ringing that notification bell. So in sports and in life, having flexibility and having that mobility can prevent catastrophic injuries. It can also lead to a greater quality of existence. And these are my top 5 ways that you can improve your overall mobility. Do yoga 5 to 6 days a week to improve your passive flexibility and your mental focus. Do regular calisthenic exercises through a full range of motion so that you can improve your mobility and your body control. So you can do regular strength training with kettlebells. One of my favorite exercises for mobility work is to do rotating thoracic presses. This helps with thoracic rotation. It's great for throwers, it's great for gymnasts, it's really good for football players to open up that upper back. I love pairing those kettlebell presses with overhead squats. Oh, I can feel that in my upper back. Ooh. So if I can get to this deep position with the tight upper back, and I know I look horrible when I'm down in the hole, that's gonna help you be more mobile and wake up that upper back to stay healthy, make sure your pecs are lengthened, and that leads to greater performance in the chest because you're more mobile. Oh, you can always improve hip mobility by training unilaterally with your strength exercises, like using a single leg squat or the single leg squat stand available at garagestrength.com to improve that overall stability and lead to great performance with speed. Mobility and flexibility are very similar, but can lead to vastly different results depending upon your goals. So make sure that you keep improving your full range of motion so that you can prevent injury and lengthen those muscles, which leads to that greater muscle belly. And if you want to learn how you can become stronger and more athletic, make sure that you subscribe to our brand new channel, Peak Strength. So if you need tool and equipment to improve your mobility, you can pick up our PowerLastics, where we have a mobility and strength band and our HAF band, or you can use our technique stick to improve your weightlifting technique and mobility in various different positions. Click on the link and head over to garagestrength.com so you can get a little bit more mobile. And shout out to Mobility Doc for helping us here at Garage Strength cultivate a ton of freaks. Because remember, if you want to be a freak, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.